Hello, and welcome to Customs and Courtesies, the show that brings the history behind military customs to you. I'm your host, Sergeant First Class Wellington Stirrup. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Operation D-Day, but more or less the history behind it. Now, before we get into this episode, I have a couple of announcements I want to make. Due to work constraints and things going on there, I've only been putting out an episode about every 2 weeks, if you've noticed lately. And that is because, as I mentioned, things going on at work have been kind of picking up for me, so not able to put out an episode every week. But I feel like that's kind of a good thing. So, yeah. I also am going on vacation soon, so there will not be an update. And when I get back from there, I'm then going TDY. So, if I am able to put one out again this month, yay. If not, sorry, look for one in July. With that, let's dive into the show. In this week's episode, Unveiling the Shadows, the role of military intelligence in D-Day. Welcome. This week, we're going to delve deep into the untold stories behind some of history's most pivotal moments. As you know, I'm your host, and today we are uncovering the intricate web of military intelligence that played a crucial role in planning the D-Day invasion. The masterminds behind this monumental operation, and the earlier operations that inspired it. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. June 6, 1944, D-Day, a date forever etched into history as the turning point in World War II. The beaches of Normandy witnessed one of the largest amphibious military assaults ever. But what many might not know is the critical role military intelligence played in this operation's success. Before the first soldier set foot on those beaches, a vast network of intelligence operations was already at work, ensuring the plan's meticulous execution. The role of military intelligence, for those that might be wondering, that took place during this time, well, military intelligence was the backbone of Operation Warlord, the code name for the Battle of Normandy for those that don't know. The Allies knew that for the invasion to succeed, they needed to achieve 3 main objectives: deception, detailed knowledge of the enemy, and precise coordination. Operation Fortitude, a prime example of this, was this operation. This elaborate deception plan aimed to mislead the Germans about the actual invasion locations. Through fake radio transmissions, dummy tanks, and the use of double agents, the Allies convinced the Germans that the invasion would occur at Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point between Britain and France, and in Norway. The success of Fortitude was critical in ensuring that German forces were not concentrated in Normandy on D-Day. The double-cross system, or XX system, was another significant aspect. This British intelligence operation turned German spies into double agents, feeding false information back to their handlers. Notable double agents like Juan Julio Garcia known by the codename Garbo, played crucial roles in this deception. Garbo created an extensive network of fictional subagents, convincing the Germans of his reliability and, consequently, the misleading intelligence he provided. These are just some of the intricate ways that we, the Allies, were able to fool the Germans. This, going back to what I mentioned earlier, was one of the three ways: deception. Now, moving on to some of the other key roles that took place during Operation Overlord. Let's look at some of the masterminds behind this. Now, let's meet some of these masterminds behind D-Day and the operation. These leaders combine strategic brilliance with a deep understanding of intelligence to orchestrate this colossal endeavor. General Dwight D. Eisenhower. At the helm was Ike, aka General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force. His leadership and ability to unify the diverse Allied forces were paramount to the operation's success. Eisenhower's keen appreciation for the role of intelligence and deception was instrumental in planning the invasion. Let's meet our next general, General Bernard Montgomery, or Monty. British General Bernard Montgomery, who commanded the ground forces for the initial assault, was another key figure, known for his meticulous planning and insistence on thorough preparation. Montgomery's strategies were deeply informed by the intelligence reports that shaped the operational decisions. For the next leader is Admiral Bertram Ramsay, in charge of naval operations. Admiral Bertram Ramsay, his expertise in amphibious warfare and coordination of naval bombardment and transportation of troops were critical. Ramsay's operations were heavily dependent on the intelligence that detailed German defenses and coastal fortifications. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what D-Day looked like, or the beaches of Normandy, I should say, looked like on the day that D-Day took place. But those fortifications needed to be known. Which leads us to the history of all of this. Some of the operations that inspired D-Day. The success of D-Day was not conceived in isolation. No. And if you listen to my podcast on Anzac Day, you already know where Churchill had one of the ideas for D-Day. But several earlier operations laid the groundwork and provided valuable lessons for this massive undertaking. For instance, Operation Torch. This operation, Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa in November 1942. This was the first major offensive by the Allies against the Axis powers and provided critical experience in amphibious operations. The lessons learned in coordination, logistics, and intelligence gathering were invaluable for planning D-Day. Next, the Dieppe Raid. Another significant precursor was the Dieppe Raid in August 1942. Although it ended in failure with heavy Allied casualties, The raid on the French port of Dieppe highlighted the need for better intelligence and preparation. The costly lessons from Dieppe directly influenced the planning and execution of the Normandy invasion, emphasizing the importance of preliminary bombardment and the element of surprise. The use of specialized units like the Jedburgh teams also drew inspiration from earlier operations. These teams, composed of 3-man cells, were parachuted behind enemy lines to assist the French resistance. Their success in coordinating, sabotage, and gathering intelligence proved the effectiveness of such tactics, which were integral to D-Day's broader strategy. Now, this unit, for instance, kind of hits a little home for me because I talked with my command sergeant major a couple months back when I was down in Georgia during the Best Ranger competition, if you recall my episode on the National Infantry Museum. And he was talking to one of the other guys that he knew there about the history of advisors. And for those that don't know, I am in the SBAB, which is one of the advisor brigades. And he mentioned that during D-Day and other operations, there had to be advisors on the ground, advising host nation partners on what was to come and what was going to happen. Does that sound like what the Jedburgh unit was doing? Kind of sounds like it to me. Now, let's talk about one more deception operation. One that I really have a profound liking for. Operation Mincemeat. Now, if you're not familiar with Operation Mincemeat, prepare yourselves. It did not directly play a role in the planning or execution of D-Day. However, it was a pivotal deception operation that influenced the broader context of Allied strategic deception during World War II. And here is how Operation Mincemeat fits into the larger picture. Executed in 1943, was a strategic deception plan aimed at misleading the Axis powers about the Allies' intended invasion of Southern Europe. The operation involved planting false documents on a dead body, which was then floated ashore in Spain. These documents indicated that the Allies planned to invade Greece and Sardinia rather than their actual target, Sicily. The success of this operation diverted German attention and resources away from Sicily, aiding in the Allies' successful invasion there. Now, the legacy of Operation Mincemeat, again, wasn't directly connected to D-Day, but it was a part of a series of successful deception operations that established a precedent and improved the effectiveness of elaborate misinformation campaigns. The mastermind behind this was none other than Ian Fleming. Yes, that Ian Fleming, the creator of Bond. And this success bolstered Allied confidence in deception tactics and directly influenced subsequent operations, including the comprehensive deception plan for D-Day, known as Operation Bodyguard. Now, Operation Bodyguard was the overarching deception strategy designed at misleading the Germans about the timing and location of the D-Day invasion. Within Bodyguard, various sub-operations such as Operation Fortitude played crucial roles, and the principles and techniques honed during Operation Mincemeat were applied and expanded upon in these efforts. So, let's move on. To our conclusion. Okay? So, Now that we have talked about the deception campaigns and how military intelligence played a role, I want to leave you with this. In conclusion, the D-Day invasion was a masterclass in the application of military intelligence, from the grand deception of Operation Fortitude to the invaluable lessons learned from earlier operations like Torch and Dieppe. Intelligence shaped every facet of this historic day. The masterminds behind the operation, including Eisenhower, Montgomery, Ramsey, and Mallory, leveraged this intelligence to orchestrate one of the most significant military operations in history. And as we reflect on the legacy of D-Day, it is clear that the shadows of intelligence and deception played as much a role in the victory as the bravery and sacrifice of the soldiers who stormed those beaches. Their combined efforts turned the tide of World War II and forged a path to liberation and peace. Because let's not forget, while it is the soldiers who are on the ground fighting, there has to be someone ahead of the lines relaying crucial information in a timely manner to the commanders on the battlefield so that they may make the decision on where to move their units in a combined effort so that the war is won. So while everybody is celebrating and remembering and honoring the legacy of the soldiers of D-Day, let's not forget the resistance fighters and the specialized units that were there coordinating the efforts so that the D-Day invasion would be a success and not another tragedy like those on the shores of Gallipoli. Thank you for joining us in this week's episode, Unveiling the Shadows, and stay tuned for the next episode where we will continue to explore the hidden forces that shaped our world. I am your host, Wellington Stirrup, and until next time, keep uncovering the shadows of history.